Okay. This meeting of the Municipal Council will now come to order. Please stand and join me in a salute to our flag. And after the flag salute, I would ask that you please remain standing for a moment of silence for Planning Board member Burt Buckley. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may all be seated. Mr. Vod, I'd like to start with a roll call vote to see who is present this evening. Hello, all. We'll start with Council Blair. Mr. Blair?
Here.
Ms. DeSimone?
Here.
Mr. Conti?
Present.
Mr. Waterman?
Here.
Mr. Delissio?
Here.
Mr. Kobus?
Here.
Ms. Dolan?
Here.
Ms. Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Holmes?
Present.
Acting President Jackson, sorry. Here. 10 yeas. No nays. Thank you. We have no records to approve this evening. We do not need to suspend the rules, but we do have public hearings. Mr. Vod, would you please read tonight's public hearing? October 20th, 2020, public hearing for setting the tax classification for fiscal year 2021. Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? I can't tell if there's anybody on double access yet. Jim, do we have anybody on waiting to speak? Todd, are you able to tell? Is anybody here to speak?
I can't.
Jack Lank is on.
Okay, he's probably going to speak against. Is there anybody here to speak in favor?
Kate, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so Jack is on and would like to address council.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Municipal Council. I don't know if this is the proper time for us to make our statement. You haven't made a proposal yet, so I don't know if it's for or against. But
Jack, excuse me, this is Kate Jackson, and we
Yep.
are looking for people who are speaking in favor
in favor of what?
of the tax classification.
Okay, but there hasn't been, is it a proposal to raise it, to keep it the same, to keep it? I don't understand.
It was discussed last Tuesday evening.
Kate, point of order.
Yes,
Um,
Councilor Delissio.
The business came down from the mayor to hold a public hearing. So tonight is a public hearing for people to talk about the classification. However, a suggestion has not been made as the public hearing is tonight. So the first true discussion about this is tonight, where last week we couldn't make a motion. My understanding was we couldn't make a motion because we didn't have the public hearing at this point.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Lank?
Well, I'll make the statement. And again, my name is Jack Lank. I'm the president of the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. And the United Regional Chamber has advocated against this dual tax rate for years. And this year, we're asking that you do not shift more of the burden onto the commercial and business community.
Excuse me, Mr. Lank, could you wait until it's either neither for nor against?
Okay, that's what my question was. I didn't know when I could speak.
Yep, that would be the best time for you to speak. Thank you so much. So hang on just a few minutes. I'm just going to see if there's anybody speak in favor.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Is there anybody here to speak in favor? With that, none. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? I don't see anybody else up there. Do you, can you see?
That would be Jack Lank.
That would be Jack.
Morb's up. Okay, Jack, you can come on now.
Okay. As I said, the United Regional Chamber has advocated against the dual tax rate for years. And this year that we're asking that the municipal council do not shift any more of the burden onto the commercial and the business community. A dual tax rate raises no additional money for essential town services, none whatsoever. The total tax levy in any city or town in Massachusetts is set by Proposition 2.5 regulations and the level of new growth in each city. Unfortunately, the way the business is taxed is intricately different from the way a resident and all of the residents are taxed, which results in itself a great deal of confusion. Assessor Julie Hobson did a fantastic job of explaining it to all of us last week about the tax classification process and the formulas that are used to determine her findings. Julie fielded a lot of questions, and I think she did an awesome job. But the current dual tax system is already neither fair nor equitable for the businesses. Businesses have to pay towards such items as the city school system and the trash pickup services, which they don't use. Residents have always received the greater value, dollar for dollar, from their tax payments, and still do even now. Under our dual tax system, because of a ratio of approximately 85% residential housing units and only 13% commercial or business units in Attleboro, if you were to leave the tax rates as they currently are, the homeowners would only see a small increase in their taxes, whereas businesses would see a raise of some 2.5 times that amount. Almost all local, professional, and businesses have already suffered greatly through this COVID-19 pandemic, and will be very slow to recover for the entire nationwide economy. Businesses and professionals have many costs of doing business that are invisible to the normal consumer, such as the ever-increasing insurance cost for property, errors and omissions, licensing fees. And coming in 2021, we're all going to face double-digit healthcare insurance increases. Businesses have to deal with the minimum wages going up. Unemployment insurance increases are through the roof due to the pandemic. And all the other additional taxes and fees that are at all levels, city, state, and federal. If you look around the city, you'll see many underutilized buildings and vacancies that are often long-term in nature. You don't, however, see many houses vacant for long. Houses turn over relatively quickly here in Attleboro. An increase in the tax rate is a significant sign to new and existing businesses that this is not a business-friendly city. What are the taxes? Is often the very first question that is asked when new businesses are looking to locate in any city or town. The current split tax rate is also an incentive to build more residential homes in the city, which we're seeing many new single-family homes being built all over the city, which further increases the demands and the burdens on a city's resources, such as the schools, whereas business growth adds to the tax base without utilizing or taxing a lot of those already limited resources. Overcrowding of the schools is only one of the impacts. Attleboro does not only face competition from other in-state communities to attract and retain our businesses and retail operations, but in fact, many states in the country quote our existing businesses and offer special incentives for them to relocate there. And I'll use Balfour and Jostens as an example. Some 80% of the US businesses are considered small businesses. Over 85% of the United Regional Chambers members have 10 employees or fewer, and many are family run. Because business taxes are based differently from residential taxes, which are based on real estate property values. When the value of business goes down, which it often does because of higher tax rates in the current economy, the commercial and industrial property tax base itself erodes, resulting in less and less tax dollars coming from the business community. It's important to note that due to the nature of the commercial tax structure, which is mandated by law, the real value of every entity that the commercial taxes are determined by often then decreases, and was pointed out by Assessor Julie Hobson last week. After this pandemic, commercial values will be way down due to the loss of revenue during this crazy pandemic. Yet the need for the critical municipal services, including police, fire, and school departments, are still very strong. Many of our local families are employed by the local businesses, and employees suffer when employers suffer, usually through loss of income or benefits. And the vast number of local companies that contribute greatly to our local youth and civic programs, when they're struggling to exist, they often can't afford to give generously as they have in the past. And if they're out of business or moved out of town, they're not there to give anything at all. Assessed real estate values have escalated only because of the true worth of residential values in the city have escalated. Home equity is real and a viable asset to homeowners, and companies doing business in our city should not be penalized because of this. The values of their businesses have traditionally not gone up in times of sluggish national marketplaces, but rather down. The United Regional Chamber is asking this honorable body not to vote to change the current tax rate and help us sustain and not penalize the existing businesses that we have here in Attleboro. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Jack. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lank? Councilor Kobus?
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. Jack, thank you for coming in and speaking. Always a pleasure. I have a couple questions, and I'll just run through all of them, and then you can answer them as you see fit. Over the last 3 years, do you have a good understanding of how many businesses have come to Attleboro and what sort of that commercial or industrial growth rate looks like for Attleboro? My understanding is that it's relatively low recently. And then to add to that, is the tax rate specifically a burden to commercial entities, and it's something that factors into the reasons why they're not coming into Attleboro? My understanding is the tax shift on average shifts about $5,000 onto commercial entities that wouldn't be there normally. And then if that is a factor, do you know what cities these communities are going to, or these commercial entities are going to? Because at least within Bristol County, the other similarly sized communities have higher commercial rates than we do. So a few questions.
Okay, I'll try and answer them as best I can. As far as the growth rate, we've lost some businesses here in Attleboro. I know that through Catherine Feerick, we're working hard to try and attract and bring new businesses to Attleboro. It's a hard figure or anything for me to even talk about right now, only because of this pandemic. On a normal year, the past 2 years, we've almost been stagnant as far as growth, only because we've lost a few of the larger businesses that have moved out. But I can't even give you an honest number due to what's going on during this COVID-19. We have businesses that are barely hanging on. Others have closed for a little while. They're going to try and reopen again. But I'd just be giving you a false number if I said something.
Okay.
Now, as far as is it a factor when a business is moving in to the tax rate? There's many factors when it comes to moving into this city or any other community. But here in the city, the commercial tax rate is almost 2.5 times. They pay more than 2.5 times raises each time that we change the tax rate. For years and years, we talked about going backwards and try and make it a little bit more equitable for the businesses. But we stopped doing that because the economy was sluggish. And we're headed back in the other direction, which, not many of you on the council were here during the promises that were made that we weren't going to do that. But it's understandable during the economic times that we're having. And I'm sorry, Todd, what was the last part of the question?
So is it your understanding that the shift generally increases the tax for commercial entities by roughly on average $5,000? And then are you aware of what other communities these commercial entities are moving to once they decide that Attleboro isn't for them.
Well-
And I appreciate you being here because you are in sort of a unique position to help us with some of these questions.
Well, I know of 4 businesses. I won't name them, but I know that one has moved to Norton, one has moved to North Attleboro, another has moved over to Rentham, and one went over to Taunton. What their reasons were, some of them, their leases were up. As we know, unfortunately, some of the property owners, the commercial property owners here in Attleboro do not live here. They're absentee owners. It's something that this city has, had fought with for years. Not that they really can do anything about it. And, they're looking for some Boston prices when it comes to the leases on these spaces. So I can't pinpoint any one reason. Of course, when your lease goes up, and you can get into another property at a lot less cost, that's just smart a business decision. But is it just because of the taxes? I don't think so. I'd be foolish to tell you that. There's many factors that are involved.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lank? I don't see.
Hey,
any.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes, please.
Kathleen-
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, Jack, thanks for coming and thank you for your comments. I have 2 quick questions. Have you heard anything from your constituents about the small commercial exemption? Do you have any thoughts on that?
We have offered that out to our people. There's been a number of incentives that we offer out. And again, this is kind of a tough time to talk about stuff like this because people are afraid to stick their neck out. They don't know what the health crisis is going to bring, over the next 6 months to 12 months. We have a lot of people who meet with our Mass Small Business Development Center, and they're there. They'd like to start businesses. They're just a little afraid to do that now.
Understood. And I appreciate your comments about the commercial real estate market and the potential turn that might take. Our assessor gave us some information about the business breakdown in Attleboro, and I'm sure it won't surprise you at all that, excuse me one second, that the largest share of the top 10 taxpayers appear to be retail stores. Do you have any concerns, any of your constituents in the retail business, and how are they feeling about their future?
They're scared to death. The online buying, Amazon just had their couple of 2 Black Fridays, whatever they want to call them. They're very afraid. A lot of them are trying to get back into online. Some of them backed off a little bit, but that seems to be the big competition right now. And people are afraid to walk in Emerald Square Mall, for instance, the outlets in Rentham, even though the outlets are outdoors, people are still afraid to go amongst crowds. So that means they're not coming through the door to buy. There's a lot of people that have curbside delivery. You can order online, but there's still a lot of us, and I'll say I'm included in that. I want to go try on a pair of pants. I want to try on a jacket. I don't want to just order it. I don't do a lot of ordering online because I'm supposed to be supporting small business, and I try to do that really hard. But the box stores are scared to death. We've had some corporate meetings with some of the big dogs in the retail, and frankly, they're very, very scared of what the future is going to bring. They've had to lay off employees. If you go into some of these retail stores, even if you do go in, it's hard to find an associate to help because they've backed off so much on their employees. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but with the discussion we've had, they're very concerned that the holiday shopping, through the end of the year is going to mainly be online, and people are not going to go out and Christmas shop and be amongst the retail stores.
Thank you, Jack.
Any other questions for Mr. Lank? I don't see any hands up. No. Thank you, Jack.
Jackson?
Oops.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead, Jay.
Thank you.
Councilor Delafield.
Jack, thank you. As always, we look forward to your presentation on this subject every year. I appreciate both Councilor Corbis and Councilor DeSimone's line of questioning. I don't want to go down those paths again, but my question, Jack, is, and as you know, I've been one who throughout the years have historically voted to get that gap closer to 1, not quite to 1, because I understand you can't do that overnight. Given everything and a lot of the uncertainty that we're seeing, do you feel that keeping it as is at this point, if we're not in a situation where we can lower it, which, you know, I think we should look at that as well. Do you think that'd be a good stopgap measure in this, in these challenging times?
Jay, as you know, I've advocated, like you, to bring it down to as close to 1 as possible. I know that's unrealistic. That will never happen. Would I love to see you decrease it this year? Absolutely. But I'm trying to be realistic. I don't think any of us know what's going to happen over this next 6 to 12 months. And, you know, we know what the dollar figures are now. Julie Hobson did a great job. I did get that report. God bless all of you that could read through that report and understand every line of it. But I think that if we would leave it the way it is, people are going to feel a little bit more comfortable, a little safer. I know that we have to look out for the residents. I've been a resident of Attleboro for 35 plus years. I'm concerned about my taxes going up too, but we also need that commercial base, because if we lose the commercial base in the few years to come, most of the burden is going to be put on all of us that own homes here in Attleboro. And, you know, it's good to see these higher value homes coming in, but the big concern is most of these homes that are being built are 2, 3, 4 bedroom single family, which means, you know, more children, which means, you know, a bigger burden on the schools, a bigger burden on all the police, the fire, the EMTs, everybody. So yes, do we want to see growth? Yes, I think we're going a little too far with some of the houses being built, but that's for another conversation.
Thank you, Jack.
Is there anybody else who has any questions for Mr. Lank? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jack, for attending tonight's public hearing.
Thank you all for your time.
Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition?
Vice President Jackson, there is a caller on the attendee list. They are unable to raise their hand, so I'm not able to deduce whether they want to speak or not. I think it's wise that I do activate their microphone in case they do want to speak. But again, I don't know whether they want to speak for or against, or if they want to speak at all.
Okay.
Their phone number ends in 8124 and their microphone is unmuted.
Okay. Hi, this is Kate Jackson from the City Council. Did you want to speak in opposition? 8124, your last phone, the last 4 digits of your phone number? Your name isn't coming up. Hello?
Looks like they're still muted.
How can you see that?
Tim, can you unmute?
I can only ask them to unmute. I
Okay.
can't unmute it for them.
I gotta start making some little cards. Hello, did you want to speak? Yeah. Well, is there anybody else who wants to speak in opposition?
There is nobody else who has indicated they would like to speak.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody who wants to speak neither for nor against this evening? Please come to the podium, Mr. Larson. And for the record, just state your name and address.
Bill Larson, 142 Fairway Drive is a residence, 90 Olive Street as commercial industrial. In the past, I have attended, excuse me, first of all, thank you for having the public hearing. In the past, I've spoken, tried to reduce the difference between the residents and the commercial industrial. But I think under the circumstances this year, my recommendation would not to do anything, not to make any change. I think the way that the numbers are computed are going to give you a very difficult decision to make. So I don't envy you that. as the presentation from the assessor last week, that was a great presentation. Home values are increasing, which certainly puts pressure on one side. The numbers that you're looking at through commercial industrial are as of 12/31/2019. So the commercial industrial numbers that you're looking at have not been affected by COVID yet. So the numbers that you get for the commercial industrial as of 12/31/2020, my gut reaction, I agree with the assessor, are going to be significantly different. No one knows what significantly is. As Mr. Lank pointed out, there's a number of businesses that just have closed, so they will not have a number. There's some like ourselves who we've been fortunate. We are allowed to stay open, but we're off anywhere from 10 to 15%. So our numbers will be down. One of the counselors pointed out that the big box stores are doing wonderfully. That's great. Somebody ought to be. But I also think Mr. Lank's presentation about a lot of online sales is going to also affect them. I would ask respectfully that you look at what you do this year and what you think you might want to do next year in tandem, because I think what you do this year may or may not set you up for a 2-for-1 in reverse next year when you get the commercial industrial reduction value. So my concern, and I understand trying to do something for the residents to put more of the burden on commercial industrial now, if that number drops significantly next year, that could come back 2-for-1 and really hurt, because nobody really knows what that number is going to be. As I said, I don't envy your decision. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Larson? Any questions? No?
I typically
you.
leave some reading material for President Cooper. Can I leave that with you?
Yes, absolutely. If you want to just hand it to Todd, that's fine, Bill. Thank you.
Things we get,
Thanks for
things
being
that we
here.
get in the mail asking us to go somewhere else. So,
And by the way, I don't envy you being a school committee member.
I should say this for full disclosure, I am on the Attleboro School Committee, but I'm not here authorized to speak
No.
on any of their behalfs.
Yeah, we understand. Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
You as well. Thank
Thank
you. Is there anybody else here to speak neither for nor against?
Vice President Jackson, let's try the phone number again, 8124. And what I'll say is if the caller would like to unmute their phone, press *6 and that will unmute your phone.
I don't think we're getting much luck with this.
Okay, we do have another person online who has just raised their hand, but they have not provided me their full name or their address in the chat. Would you like me to allow them to talk?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Are you going to speak in favor? Are you not neither for nor against?
Yes. Madam President, members of the council, my name's John Lepper, and I live at 311 Newport Avenue, and I'm a member of the Council on Aging Board of Directors. First and foremost, I request that you adopt a tax factor that does not shift the tax burden onto senior residential property owners. The recent concluded study entitled Aging in the City of Attleboro, a community needs assessment conducted by the Gerontology Institute at UMass Boston states, and I quote, "Perhaps the most pervasive unmet need cited among interviewees and focus group participants was the rising costs of housing in Attleboro. Specifically, property taxes are raising costs that for people on fixed incomes are becoming insurmountable challenges to Hey, in Attleboro. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Now, at the city of Attleboro, in the city of Attleboro. There are approximately 9,000 residential residents in the city who are 60 and older. And this number is projected to increase between 12,000 and 13,000 by the year 2013. Their median household income of the current residents 65 and older is $40,000 a year, and 68% of those householders 65 and older own their own homes. The Council on Aging is very appreciative of the efforts the council has made to adjust many of the municipal councils increase their effort to increase abatements for senior citizens, but we also urge that you adopt a tax classification that makes it possible for seniors to think positively about continuing to live in their homes in Attleboro. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mucker. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions, Mr. Mucker? Thank you very much, Mr. Mucker.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else here to speak neither for nor against? Neither for nor against. I see that we have a name up there, Dr. John Lepper. Did he want to? Does anybody else want to speak neither for nor against? Neither for nor against. No. With that, Councilor Delicio, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open, or would you prefer to close it?
I would like to close it tonight so we can discuss at 6:30 next Tuesday night and vote it there shortly thereafter on Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This public hearing is closed. Thank you. There are no other public hearings. However, I just wanted to remind the public that the public hearings on the environmental protection and prevention ordinances, that is continued. We had continued that to November 17th. So you'll be able to come and speak before us again that evening if you should so choose. With that, Mr. Vod, we'll go on to a reading of the mayor's communication.
October 20th, 2020. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Works Director Finance Mark Furtado regarding FY 2020 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal FY 2020 business cycle. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay these previous year school bills totaling $21,905.49 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication, and copies are in your packet.
We'll refer that to the Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Health Department Outreach Worker Case Manager Tisha Silva and Public Health Nurse Jacqueline Joyle O'Brien regarding the donation of $180 in Stop and Shop gift cards from an anonymous member of the community. These cards will be offered by the Health Department's public nurse and outreach worker to individuals and families in need in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro. I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous gifts to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packet.
Refer that to the City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Health Department Outreach Worker, Case Manager Tisha Silva, and Public Health Nurse Jacqueline Joyle O'Brien regarding the donation of $250 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the Emmett Larkin Memorial Foundation. These cards will be offered by the Health Department's public nurse and outreach worker to individuals and families in need in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro. I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous gifts to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packet.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Michael Tyler, regarding the need for funds to purchase and install new audible pedestrian crosswalk buttons at the intersections of Elizabeth Street and North Main Street. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $5,390 from account 112410000-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 142010000-524013 Public Works Maintenance of Traffic Lights. Upon approval, the available balance in the reserve fund for transfer to include any pending requests will be $287,152.67. Copies in your packet.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for your confirmation by the honorable body the appointment of Paul Astafin, 17 Adamsdale Road, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Traffic Study Commission. Term to expire February 2022. Copies in your packet.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Crown Street as a public way, length of approximately 160 feet, and accept said way in any related drainage, water, and sewer facilities or easements, all as shown on a plan and profiled entitled Street Acceptance Plan for Crown Street, dated February 2020, prepared by Samuel Hemingway, PE, and Samuel A. White Jr., PLS.
Thank you. Zoning and Land Use and.
Madam Chair, we'd like to call for a public hearing.
I'm sorry, Councilor Conti, I'm putting it in Zoning and Land Use.
Okay, but it calls for a public hearing on the acceptance.
Yep, and that's what I was just speaking to Councilor Colbus about. So we'll have a public hearing, Councilor
The
Colbus, on
17th.
the 17th of November?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So that public hearing will be the 17th of November.
I hereby request your,
Point of order. I think we have to vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we've got to do a roll call vote now,
Roll call.
because we got everybody here.
okay. And we're starting with Ms. Holmes.
We'll start with Mr. Blair.
Mr. Blair. Mr. Blair? Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
thank you. That public hearing will be held on the 17th of November.
I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to discontinue Crown Street as a public way, length of approximately 160 feet, and approve said discontinuance as shown on the street discontinuance plan entitled Discontinuance Plan for Crown Street, dated February 2020, prepared by Samuel A. White Jr., PLS.
I'm going to refer that to Zoning and Land Use also. Councilor Colbus, would you like to call for a public hearing on November 17th?
I would. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a second. We'll have a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
thank you. And are there any other communications this evening, Ms. Ravad?
Not from the mayor, but we have other communications. Attleboro City Court Communications, October 20th, 2020. A communication from resident Lisa Abreu discussing the winter parking ban.
Refer that to Public Works Committee.
A communication from resident Joe Caponigo speaking against some of the amendments to the environmental ordinance.
To the Ordinance Committee, please.
A request from National Grid to install conduit from an existing manhole on Wall Street for service to new apartment building.
Public Works Committee.
An application from the South Attleboro Post 312 on Newport Avenue for an automated amusement device license for a jukebox and pool table.
License Committee, please.
The following 4 applications were received for Class 1 licenses. Just Trailers, Inc., 1863 County Street, 12 customer parking spaces and 7 display. National Van Builders, 70-84 Pine Street, with 8 customer spaces and 45 display. Courtesy Auto Group, 11 and 16 Scott Street, 34 customer parking and 172 display spaces. JT Automotive LLC, doing business as Kia of Attleboro and or Kia of South Attleboro, 795 Newport Avenue, with 46 customer spaces and 195 display spaces.
License Committee, please.
The following 11 applications were received for Class 2 licenses. Gas Plus, 80 Pleasant Street, 10 customer spaces, 24 display spaces. Classic Auto Sales at 1100 Oak Hill Avenue, 5 customer spaces, and 23 display. East Coast Auto Sales, 24 Rice Street, 14 parking spaces, 40 display. Blue and White Motors, 1815 County Street, with 4 customer spaces and 15 spaces, display spaces. Automazed, 885 Washington Street, with 10 customer parking spaces, 55 display, and 48 storage spaces. Automazed 2, 826 Washington Street, with 13 customer parking spaces and 80 display spaces and 38 storage spaces. North Main Street Auto, 44 North Main Street, with 17 customer spaces and 1 display space. Greco Auto, 83 Dickens Street, with 10 customer parking spaces and 31 display. County Auto Sales and Service, 42 County Street, with 10 customer parking and 28 display. Leans Auto Repair, 141 Pine Street, with 7 customer spaces, 29 display. New England Automax, doing business as Automax Pre-Owned, with 10 customer and 100 display spaces.
License Committee, please.
The following application was received for a Class 3 license. Greco's Auto, 83 Dickens Street, with 10 customer parking and 31 display spaces.
License Committee, please.
A communication from the Council on Aging Director Madeline McNeely regarding the tax classification for fiscal 2021 and its impact on seniors.
I'm going to refer that to the Budget and Appropriation Committee, please.
A communication from resident Sharon Fortune speaking in support of the proposed environmental ordinance amendments.
To the Ordinance Committee, please.
And that's all I have.
I'm going to entertain a motion to go into the Committee of the Whole.
Second,
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Blair. Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 11 nays.
Thank you. At this time, we entertain the motion to anybody who would like to speak before the council. If there's anybody on the Zoom that wants to speak before the council on any matter, you're welcome to join us.
There does not appear to be.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim. With that, I entertain a motion to arise from the Committee of the Whole.
Second,
Thank you. That's okay. We're going to have to take a roll call vote on this as well. Ms. Ravad, thank you. We'll start with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
yes,
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
yes,
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, 11 noes.
thank you. So now we're gonna go to committee reports. So we'll begin with committee reports this evening, starting with Counselor Blair.
Thank you, Ms. Acting President Keith Jackson. I have 3 motions to bring forward this evening. From the docket of October 20th, 2020, I move that in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro, to approve expending funds and any future grant amendments as is related to the anticipated FY 21-911 training grant, EOP.
He froze.
EOPSS State 911 Department in the amount of approximately $230,450.60. There is no match required.
Thank you.
second,
Oh, thanks, Jay. We talked about that last week in committee. There is no matching grant whatsoever. And this will cover the required training that we have to do for the 9/11 dispatches and overtime that's to be paid for people to cover while they do the mandatory training. Any questions, comments?
No comments? Okay. This requires a roll call vote. We will begin with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
yes,
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
yes,
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 11 nays.
Motion.
Thank you.
10 yeas, no nays.
Yes.
Thank
Motion
you. From
passes.
the docket of October 20th, 2020. I move to transfer $3,623.40 from account 112410000-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1300100-51110 school crossing guard salaries per executed memorandum of agreement with the Attleboro Crossing Guard Association.
Second.
Just a
A
reminder.
quick point of order. Can you read the school crossing guard salaries account number again?
1300100-511110. 4 ones. Crossing guards salaries per executed memorandum of agreement with the Attleboro Crossing Guard Association.
Second.
This,
Any other comments?
yeah, this comments increase in salaries and also the minimum wage going up. Any
Any
questions?
questions or other comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
yes,
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
yes,
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of October 20th, 2020, I move to pay a fire department FY 2020 invoice to Redline for $1,500. A vote authorized payment is needed to satisfy this debt.
Second,
Second.
This Redline is the company that come in and sanitized all the forced fire stations. And we will pay them and then get reimbursed from an account that I haven't got the paper in front of me, but it's a state organization that will pay this, but we have to pay them first and then we will get reimbursed.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? This requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
bless you.
Thank you. I have no other business to bring forward this evening, but would request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor DeSimone.
Good evening, Acting President Jackson. I have two items for consideration this evening from the docket of October 20th, 2020. I move to approve the installation of an isolated stop sign for southbound drivers on Loomis Street at Como Drive, and that section 10-4.11 of the revised ordinances be amended accordingly.
Second,
Thank you, Jay. Councilor Delicio, I don't know what else to say about this, but if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Any questions, comments? With none, that requires a roll call vote, please. And we will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 11 nays.
motion.
I mean,
passes. 10
10 yeas, no nays. I don't know why I have this on my mind.
Thank you very much. Thank you. From the docket of October 20th, 2020, I move to appropriate $103,260.09 from account 10003590000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to the following: $41,575.45 to account 142010000-585082 Public Works Crosswalk System. $61,684.64 to account 142010000-585083 Public Works Radar Sign System.
Second.
Thank you. I think you'll all remember this started as an emergency, a request, an emergency measure from the mayor, but this is going to fund several of the radar light signs. I forget if it's 16, and the crosswalk, lighted crosswalk signs as well. So.
Thank you, Councilor DeSimone. Does anyone have any questions, comments? With none, this requires a roll call vote as well, and we will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes,
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
good job.
Thank you very much. That concludes the business of the Traffic and Transportation Committee for this evening. We'll ask for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor DeSimone, while you're up, would you want to do the Public Works Committee?
Yes, yes, Vice President Jackson.
Thank you.
Reporting for the Public Works Committee from the docket of October 20, 2020. I move to pay a distribution grade 4 license exam fee for the Water Department from FY 2020 and transfer $102 from account 6100-578300 Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account 6100-578020 Water Enterprise Fund bills from previous years.
Second.
Thank you, Jay.
Welcome.
Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns?
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? With none, we'll have a roll call vote, please, beginning with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
thank you.
Thank you very much. From the docket of October 2020, I move to pay a distribution grade 3 license exam fee for the Water Department from FY 2020 and transfer $102 from account 6100-578300 Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account 6100-578020 Water Enterprise Fund bills from previous years.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments?
I have a question.
Oh, Counselor Reynolds?
I can't remember. I know these came out of committee last week, but had these tests been taken before? Is this the first time this test was taken? Was this employee? I mean, I know normally we pay for these tests if they pass the exam. Was this exam passed?
It's pass or fail, we pay.
For both, even if it's a fail?
If it failed, yep, that's what the communication stated, yes. And
Thank
I
you.
don't know if it's their first time that they took it. I don't know who I'm not privy to that.
Okay, no issues. I'll check into that further. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? With that, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Reluctantly, yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes, I speak with Sarah on this one. We should add more information.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
thank you.
Thank you. From the docket of October 20th, 2020, I move to pay an FY 2020 invoice in the Franklin Street Water Main Capital Project Fund and appropriate $1,947 from account 6100-359000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to Fund 3335 Franklin Street Water Main Replacement and further authorize the payment of $3,338.04 to prior year invoice from LaRusso Corp.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? With none, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion passes.
Thank you. And last, from the docket of October 6, 2020, I move to approve the following DPW truck as surplus and available for disposition. Year 1986, make Ford F650, VIN number 1FDPK74N2GV A57459 in operable condition.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
yes,
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion passes.
That concludes the business from the Public Works Committee this evening. I would ask to call a meeting at the next appropriate time, please.
Thank you, Counselor DeSimone, for handling that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Counselor Waterman.
Yes. Reporting from the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee and from the docket of October 6, 2020, I move to approve the appointment of Ben Quell, 25 Wall Street, Middleborough, Mass., to fill an unexpired term of Director of Veterans Services, term to expire February 2022. Mr. Quell was offered employment with the City of Attleboro September 16th, 2020, under a temporary 90-day appointment in accordance with Section 3.3B of the Attleboro Home Rule Charter.
Second.
Thank you. We've all had a chance to meet with Ben. I am personally, I think we're very blessed to have him here. He has great experience and he's very qualified.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
yes,
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion passes.
Thank you. And also, and from the docket of October 20th, 2020, I move to approve the request of the mayor to rescind the following vote from the September 8th, 2020 council meeting. We voted on a roll call, 11 yeas, 0 nays, to hold a public hearing on October 6, 2020 to amend the ordinance section 2-18.1 organization to increase the number of members from 9 to 15 for the Council on Human Rights.
Second.
Thank you. Since our vote, this was discussed between members of the Council on Human Rights and our mayor, and they decided that they were happy just having 9, and we didn't really need to go to 15. So that's the reason.
Thank you, Mr. Waterman. Is there any other comments or questions? With seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
yes,
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. And that concludes the business of the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee. We'll meet next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Waterman. Moving right along, Counselor Delicio.
Sorry, Ms. Jackson, I was on mute. Reporting for budget and appropriations, I have no business. We will be meeting on 10/27 at 6:30 for a special meeting where I will vote. And then at that special meeting, I will vote out the motions that we discussed last week, as well as tax classification. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Delicio. Thank you. Counselor Cobus.
The Zoning and Land Use Committee doesn't have anything tonight, and we look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank Thank you very much, Counselor Cobus. Thanks for joining me. Counselor Dolan.
Hi, thank you. I have two motions this evening from the docket of October 20th, 2020. I move to approve the request for an amended Class 2 license from Auto Mazed of 885 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 10 customer parking spaces, 55 display spaces, and 48 storage spaces.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Delicio. Any comments?
No
Questions?
comment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from anyone else? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of October 20th, 2020, I move to approve the request for an amended Class 2 license from Automaze 2 of 826 Washington Street with 13 customer parking spaces, 80 display spaces, and 38 storage spaces.
Second.
Counselor Delicio. Any comments or questions?
None.
None from anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion passes.
That's all the business for licenses committee, and I look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Dolan. You're going to be very busy for the next couple of weeks.
Here we go.
Counselor Reynolds.
Thank you. Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee, I have one motion this evening from the docket of October 20th, 2020. I move to declare the following police department vehicle as surplus and available for disposition. It is a 1993 GMC 3500 Sierra bucket truck. It has 158,382 miles on it. It's very poor condition.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
No, I have none.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, and that will begin with Counselor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. That is all the business that the City Property and Claims Committee has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Counselor Reynolds.
Thank you.
Counselor Holmes.
Thank you. Reporting from Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee from the docket of July 21st, 2020. I move to approve the proposed amendments for ordinance changes by the Health Department to Section 7-7 collection of solid waste as follows. Section 7-7 collection of solid waste amended.
Second.
Thank you. Counselor Delicio, any comments?
Yes, so I did follow up with the administration, and I wanted to let you know that the administration is working on, I'm gonna actually read it. It sounds like they're working out a deal to have 4 small bulk items every 4 months. So with waste management, it seems like they're working out the language to add that to the contract. I know everybody was asking last week that I followed up with the mayor about that, so I did want to give that information. And then I hope everybody received the email from Cindy as well as the amendments that Todd had sent along.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Cobus?
I have a couple of amendments, but before I get into those, I did have a question through the president to Councilor Holmes. Last week we had asked about the bulk items, and I know we're in this gray area where we've sort of accepted the contract, but we haven't changed the ordinance. And do we know where we are right now? Can residents leave small bulk items out right now or not?
So the contract, oh, can I speak?
Councilor Holmes, yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Acting President Jackson, thank you. So the contract is being honored right now. So as of right now, that the contract that we're working with has to be honored. But as I mentioned, administration is trying to work out a deal to have 4 small bulk items every 4 months. And I think that language is being worked out and hopefully will be added to the contract.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Cobus?
I'll move forward with the amendments. First one, I move to amend section 7-7.3 by deleting the following text. Domestic garbage and rubbish shall not contain items defined as domestic recyclables. Each homeowner shall separate from non-recyclable rubbish all domestic recyclables as defined.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So this is just to remove the text about recycling being mandatory. Everybody in the city is obviously encouraged to recycle, and that provides you a lot of additional space, and everybody knows it's the right thing to do. The rationale behind getting rid of this is to remove the option of fining people for if there's a can found in their regular trash or rubbish. So that's all this is. I think now that recycling is as widely accepted as it is, there isn't a need to put this language in here.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Delicio?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. To Councilor Cobus, thank you for bringing this forward. I think, I've got a lot of concerns fundamentally with this contract being entered, with us having to really kind of carry it. We've all talked about it. I think the reality is, we've talked about it pre-pandemic, during the pandemic. There's a lot of fees that there's a lot of people struggling out there right now. And I think we have an opportunity now to limit some of the fees and get it back to a normal level. So I certainly appreciate where you're coming from on this.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Councilor Blair?
I agree with Todd and Jay on that. I thought the fines were a little out of sight, and I don't think we have to go after the residents with fines, and I'm afraid it would get rampant and they'd be looking for them. So I agree with Todd. That doesn't have to be in there.
Thank you very much. Councilor Cobus?
Just to add to that, there's the mayor always talks about, if in doubt, throw it out, and don't we have this concern with the recycling program. So this just avoids the potential of then getting fined for something.
Sure. Good point. Councilor DeSimone?
Thank you. Councilor Cobus, I'm just curious, were someone for some reason to put recyclables on a consistent basis in with their domestic garbage and rubbish, how would we go about, or how would the city go about addressing that issue without any leverage, like without a fine or whatever? Do you have any thoughts?
I don't have a good answer for that, except to say that with the blue bin being the size that it is, I think residents across the city are encouraged to, in order to sort of be able to get rid of the trash that they need, they'll need to rely on recycling.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. Anyone else? Councilor Blair?
I think in the past, fellow councilors, if you get a repeat offender that was not recycling, They just don't pick up his trash.
Thank you, Counselor Blair. Any other comments, questions? Counselor Reynolds?
So I just have a question that I want to go back to I just don't know if this is the place or the time for it, is when Counselor Holmes spoke about the $29 fee and that we're honoring that. I want to speak to that again if I might, but I'll wait until it's my turn. I just don't want to close out the committee until I get a chance to say something.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions from the council? No other comments? I don't see any hands raised. So we're going to do two votes, one to vote on the amendment, and then the amendment as amended.
And then I have an additional amendment.
Yes, to the same 7 no, not to the same 7.73, right?
Right.
So I have to do these all separately.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so
Ready to begin? And I'm sorry, it'll begin with Counselor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Deluzio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
And now we will vote on the amendment that's amended.
So point of order.
Yes, please.
Right now, we're just voting on 7-7.3.
Correct. Just what you just talked about, that's all.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we'll begin with Counselor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Deluzio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. Counselor Cobus, did you have, let me bring up the other amendments?
Sure. So I move to amend the first paragraph of 7-7.5 to read as follows. A schedule for the collection of domestic rubbish and domestic recyclables shall be established by the Health Department. All domestic rubbish and/or domestic recyclables shall be placed for curbside collection between 5 p.m. on the day prior to the scheduled pickup and 7 a.m. on the day of the scheduled pickup. Containers shall be placed on the outer edge of sidewalks where available and otherwise no further than 3 feet from the edge of pavement. The recycling and garbage/rubbish carts must be at least 3 feet away from any other containers or structures, e.g. signs, mailboxes, vehicles, etc.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Deluzio. Comments, Counselor Cobus?
And this just makes a change to allow the Attleboro trash bags to be put out earlier than the day of. So you could put the Attleboro trash bags out the night prior, because it heard from a number of people that were concerned about leaving for work at the crack of dawn and all that. So that's all this changes.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Counselor Dolan.
No, never mind. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Dolan, thank you. Anyone else? Comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote on the amendment.
And Ms. Holmes,
Starting with Counselor Holmes. Yes, thank you.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Deluzio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Now the amendment passes. Now we'll vote on the amended amendment. Please, and we'll start with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. The amended amendment passes.
And
Thank you, Counselor Cobus.
last one.
Certainly.
Move to amend section 7-7.8 to read as follows. 7-7.8 fines. Any person who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be punished by a fine according to the following schedule. First offense, $25. Second through seventh offense, increasing by $25 per offense. Eighth offense and each offense thereafter, $200. Such penalties shall be assessed in accordance with the provisions for the non-criminal disposition of violations in general laws, chapter 40, section 21D as amended. This ordinance may be enforced by the health department. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Delicio. Comments, Counselor Cobus?
This just changes, it just keeps the fee schedule the same as what it was in the past, as opposed to the proposal to go to, was it 100, 200, 400, 300, $400, and then you're kicked out of the program. That fee schedule may be needed, and we may need to increase the fees. I don't think this is the year to be doing it, though.
Agreed. Any other comments? Questions? Council Holmes, did you have a hand up? No.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to have any fees. I think, I wish it was less than this, to be honest with you, maybe $10. But I don't know if you guys would support that or not. I just feel like it is kind of excessive, and I like that. I don't think that, definitely don't like the $100, $200, $300, and then you have to have a, sounds like a hearing to even stay in the program. I don't agree with that. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Counselor Dillon, did you have your hand up, I thought? No. Counselor Reynolds?
I would be comfortable if Counselor Holmes is in agreement with that, to amend the amendment to either $10 or to zero. And go back to not having any fees, or even having a hearing to get people back in the program.
Counselor Cobus?
Counselor Cobus.
Clarification, this is what is in place currently, and what's currently in effect is these $25 fees. And I do think there's value in having some sort of a stick, and I think $25 is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. Counselor Dolan?
Hi, yeah, I agree. I'd like to stick with what we already have. I wouldn't support anything lower. Thank you.
Counselor Delicio?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I appreciate where Council Holmes is coming from. I don't think any of us want to see fines. I think to Councilor DeSimone's earlier points, there's got to be some semblance of punitive action for those who are just going to repeat. But I think it's got to be that balance. I think for the moment, I'm okay keeping it as it is currently. What I'm not okay with, and I know it's just legalese, but having the word punish in there, and having like this whole thing, it just seems too much like, I don't know. It just bothers me when a government says we're going to punish someone or an entity. I think the fines are fine, and I know it's wordsmithing, it's nitpicky, but to me, that's always rubbed me the wrong way. I think that for the time being, I mean, Council Holmes, I'm with you. I'd love to see no fees across the board, but there's got to be some semblance of motivation for people not to violate the program. So I would be all right keeping it with Council Cobus's amendment.
Council Delicio. Council Waterman.
Yes, Councilor Cobus, would you consider a slight amendment and simply say shall be fined and take out the word punished? How would you feel about that? There he is.
I would accept that. Do you want me to make that? Do you want to make that motion?
No, it's fine if you make it. You made it.
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment so that it reads, violates any provision of this ordinance shall be fined according to the following schedule. And to be clear, the punished text is what was there previously. And so I was just reverting to the original text, but I'm very comfortable with changing it to this.
Did I have a second for the motion?
Do you want to second that? Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Jackson.
That's quite all right. It's all right. Are there any other questions?
I do.
Hard to see you, Council Holmes. It's very hard to see you tonight.
Yes, sorry. I do. I have to try to make another amendment. I think that if we could please reduce the first offense through the seventh offense to $15, and then the eighth offense would be $100. I'd like to make an amendment. So it would be $15 for the first through seventh, and then $200, or sorry, $100 for the eighth. And I understand, Council Cobus, that this is what was there, but I'm sick of these fees. I'm sorry. I feel like I have to do this.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Just give me 1 second, guys. So you're going to reduce it to 15 and the other one to 100. Jay seconded. Got to get those good notes, just like President Cooper does. Okay, so now we have a second. Are there any other comments? Please, Councilor Cobus.
So I'm not in favor of this. I think the $25 is fairly low as it is, and going lower doesn't prohibit people from moving forward. But or from violating the ordinances here. But I did have a question for Councilor Holmes as far as, did you say that the first offense would be $15 and then the second through seventh offenses will increase, or are the second through seventh offense $15 as well? So it's not,
Yeah,
does it
all of
increase?
them, first through seventh would be $15, eighth would be the 100.
Okay. I'm not in favor of that.
Okay. So we're going to take a vote.
Acting President Jackson.
I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead, Councilor Dolan or Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you. If I may, I'm not going to support either. Well, I'm going to support Councilor Cobus's First Amendment, which is simply to keep it as it stands. I think those are low enough, but they have a little bit of bite to be an incentive. So I won't support either reduction.
Thank you, Councilor DeSimone. Councilor Dolan.
Yeah, I won't be supporting that either. It's very rare, the fining, because I wish I could remember when the health department was before us and they told us the figure that they had taken in regarding fines, and it was extremely low. You know, they don't have the manpower to be out there constantly checking and everything, and I believe the fines to be few and far between. So I think that I'd like to stick with the $25, which was what the ordinance was previous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. Councilor Reynolds.
So my thought would be is if it's so rare that we find, why do we even have it in there? If we don't find people, why are we even having anything in there that says anything about fines? Which brings me back to why is there even a fine there? And wouldn't 10 or 15 be fine? If there's not the manpower to go after people, why do we have it in writing? It's ridiculous. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Counselor Reynolds. Counselor DeSimone.
Thank you, Acting President Jackson. My notes indicate that when Mr. Perry spoke to us, I have a note here that said in FY20, the city took in about $4,500 worth of fines. So I think they're there to be an incentive and additional motivation, such as they are, to keep, hopefully that people just keep doing the right thing. But I think they're important enough to stay where they are. Thank you.
Thank you, DeSimone. Counselor Delicio.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. So I agree with Councilors Reynolds and DeSimone. I think what would make this more palatable for me, because the idea of the fee is to be more of a deterrent. So, you violate it, here's your fee, don't do it again. I would find it, and I would like to make an amendment to add to Councilor Holmes' amendment for it to increase by $15 from 1 through 7. Because hopefully, well, I need a second first.
Second.
Okay. Counselor Delicio, did you have any other comments?
I did, thank you. Because again, I think the point of it is to, for it to be a deterrent. You want to be
Point of
cautious.
order. We can't nest more than 3 deep. So I think we would need to, with the motions and the amendments, according to Robert's
yes, thank
rules,
you,
which
yes.
Maybe we
Nope,
don't
you
follow
are
that, but
correct. Thank you, Counselor
technically, we're not supposed to go more than 3 levels deep.
Yes.
Or
So
we can't have an amendment to the amendment to the amendment.
right. So we would have to vote this as the amendment appears at the $15 to the 100. See
Come out,
if it comes
and
out,
then
that
Jay can make-
passes, and then go back, or we can go back to you, or Jay can make a motion at that point. Are you following me, guys, counselors?
Yeah, so I just have a procedural question to that. Can we, as a friendly amendment, add the language that I was suggesting, so it's not a full amendment, but it's a friendly amendment to what Councilor Holmes proposed?
Yeah, I believe you can do that, Counselor Delicio. You're offering it up as a friendly amendment that, I just want to make sure I have this clear, $15, 1 through 7?
Increases by 15, 1 through 7.
So it starts off at, I just want to get this
Starts
correct.
off at 15, increases by 15, 1 through 7.
Okay. But in 100 is the final?
Would
Or the
be
8
Oh.
at,
correct.
or 15 all
The
the
only
way
thing
through?
I'd be adding to Councilor Holmes' amendment was the word increases by 15.
And that's going to appear after the first offense.
First offense would be 15, second would be 30, so on and so forth.
Yeah, but so you want me to write this? I just want to make sure I write this correctly.
Yep.
The first offense, $15, with an increase by $15
One,
with each, right? Is that how you want to put it?
yes.
Yeah.
With the final being 120, if we want to.
Would have to be. 'Cause
Right.
7 would be 105.
With the final being, I'm sorry.
With the 8th offense being $120, if we want to
Okay.
increment it by 15.
Mhm.
If that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have all that too?
I just need to know what we're voting on, the first thing.
So the first thing we're going to vote on is to have an amendment. And then we're going to go back and with everything that Councilor Cobus has written, we've got some scratches out on it. So we'll vote on that to see if that passes that way with the $15, starting at $15 with increments of $15 increases through each offense.
So the first thing we're voting on is to have an amendment
To
to
have an
have the
amendment.
$15.
First, we're gonna vote that we're having an amendment, and then we're gonna vote on the amendment as presented.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So this is voting on Diana's amendment to the amendment.
Yes, this is, yes,
Got it.
yeah. I just want to make sure I have it written correctly. All right. So I'm just gonna read this. excuse me, I'm just going to read this because I have to make sure I have this correct. So any person who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be fined according to the following schedule. First offense, $15 with $15 increase through each offense. Increasing by $15 per offense, correct?
Correct.
All right. Increasing by $15 per offense. Great. And so we're going to scratch out that 200. Correct? Yeah. All right.
This is
Until I go
Diana's
again.
amendment.
Yeah, I know. I'm just making, you're in person. It's easier to read you right now. Okay, so now we're gonna, does anyone have any other questions? Any other comments?
Yes, I have one. So do
Yes.
we want to say that the 8th offense therefore is $120? To be clear?
I don't think you have to.
It's an increment of 15.
Yeah.
It would be 120 anyway.
Are you offering that up? I'm not sure.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to get it clarified. If Councilor DeLucio wants to say that, that's fine, but otherwise we'll leave it.
Thank you for that opportunity, Councilor Waterman, but I think I've said my piece.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments to all these amendments? So we'll have a baptism. So we'll have a roll call vote on an amendment.
Yep.
And we'll begin with Council Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
No.
Mr. Cobus,
No.
Mr. DeLucio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
No.
Mr. Conti,
No.
Ms. DeSimone,
No.
Ms. Blair, Mr. Blair,
No.
no, and Ms. Jackson,
No.
3 yeas, 7 nays.
Motion fails.
3 yeas.
Thank you. So now we go back to the amendment that was proposed by Councilor Cobus originally.
And that would be the increase,
That would,
$15, the first offense, and
no, that would be the one that's written, the first offense, $25. The one that's a little bit highlighted that I just scratched out.
all right, so this vote would be to amend it to the first offense to be 25
Correct. And we're going to add that word find in there.
and punished to be fined.
And it's just going to say find
Yep.
according to the following schedule.
Okay,
So now we're going to have a vote on the amendment, the original amendment. Is everybody clear on that? Great. We'll have a roll call vote starting with Council Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. DeLucio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
motion carries. Thank you. That was easy. And Council Reynolds, I
So
know that you had wanted to speak with regards to 7-8.1.
I think it was 7, I think that was it, 7-8.1. I couldn't remember the number of it, but what I had hoped for is that we could basically strike the recent change of $29 per large item and revert back to the prior written word before that came in, that the mayor had changed it, while we were requesting that the mayor find an alternative solution, which I believe Councilor Holmes says that he's working on. So in the meantime, I think we should revert back to what was originally in the ordinance, because we never voted to change that.
So you want to put, I just want to be sure on this as well. So you want to remove where it says, number 2, where it says bulk items may be disposed of by appointment through city's approved waste haul or $29 per bulk item, and replace with the original one bulky item, e.g. furniture or non-metal item per household per week.
Correct.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, that was a second, Jay? Thank you very much. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Counselor Dolan?
So, I mean, I don't see how we can go back on a contract that's already signed. So I understand the mayor's working on it. We don't know what the results of that yet. But as of right now, as of the end of September, we are not allowed to put out any items. So if we strike this and people stop putting out items, who's going to pay waste management for it on a contract that we're already supposed to be honoring as of October 1st? What do we do? Like, if we strike it, people stop putting items out, 1, waste management probably will just leave it there. And 2, if they do pick it up, who's paying for it?
Well,
I just don't know what, yet I don't understand, because we're already in the contract.
The Blair?
I make a suggestion. I don't agree with the $29 either, but I also don't agree with I'm trying to do something. I like to see something definite come down and in writing that we're going to pick up one bulk item a month from each route or whatever. But I just can't go along. I'm trying. So I won't vote no on the whole measure unless we get a definite from the administration.
Counselor Reynolds, I saw your hand up next.
So I'm concerned that it's in a contract when we hadn't even heard about it ourselves and we hadn't even corrected the ordinance. I mean, that's just absurd. What comes first? So my feeling is that I would have to, if we can't change it, and maybe the city should be paying for it. They changed it without changing the ordinance. So as far as I'm concerned, the bottom line would be to vote it down, period. No, that it's disagreeable because the ordinance was never there. It wasn't changed first, wasn't even discussed.
Thank you. Counselor Conti, you're up next.
So I agree with Councilor Reynolds, and I will not support this ordinance because it's an unfinished piece of business. And I will not support something that's going to be changed in the future. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Counselor Conti. Counselor DeSimone.
I appreciate Councillor Reynolds' concerns, but I too am leery of the quagmire that we find ourselves in. Where are we to do anything at this moment? The city has a contract. Contracts have to be abided by, at least as it pertains to the vendor. So I would suggest, in all due respect, we do nothing at the moment till we get a little bit of clarification as to how to proceed. I appreciate the point, but I'm not sure that taking a vote this evening is going to resolve it in a satisfactory way. And especially if the city winds up getting whacked for any assigned charges. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Counselor DeSimone. Counselor Delicio.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. So Councilor DeSimone, I agree 100% with you. I'm in favor of the amendments that we've seen, but I think this is indicative of a bigger problem right now. We're forced to vote on an ordinance for a contract that we had no say on whatsoever. And I understand that the mayor can enter into contracts, but this is a pretty big contract when we're changing a fee structure that's going to impact people, especially in this day and age and everything else that's going on. So I'm voting no against the motion in general, especially as Councilor Holmes said at the beginning. If the mayor is working on it, I think it's in our best interest if we just exercise a little bit of caution and a little more patience and wait until he has a final product to come down to us. As Councilor Conti said, I agree. This is an incomplete ordinance.
Counselor Dolan.
I mean, we don't negotiate contracts. I mean, that's not the council's role. But here we are, and I'm wondering if we should have just held off until the mayor has an answer on that bulk item. So we should have just sat back and waited until then we can have a complete package, because we don't know the answer to that yet. So I don't know. Because if we're gonna be in a real quagmire if citizens stop putting bulk items out and Waste Management drives right by them. So I don't know what to do about this now.
Council Cobus?
My only concern is we've been asking for an answer on this bulk item for months now. And but we've already entered this contract. And so we are in a pretty difficult situation. I think we did put a lot of work into these amendments that we discussed. I'm open to a number of things, but one of the things I would be open to would be moving forward with Sarah's amendment to just revert back to the $29 or to remove the $29 fee and apply a little bit of pressure to the mayor to move forward quickly and approve what we have. And then we would get new business down, hopefully quickly, from the mayor to address the $29 fee, or we use some of the free cash to address the situation.
Thank you, Council Cobus. Council Blair?
It would seem simple to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but if we don't act on this tonight and table it and give the mayor 2 weeks, next week's a committee meeting, the week after, we can vote on it. Give them 2 weeks to get something solid from Waste Management in writing that we can agree to, because this is the only thing holding it up. And Waste Management is not going to pick up large items till they come to an agreement with the administration. As simple as that. I've asked the driver, and they've been instructed not to pick them up, which that's what the contract said. So I think, can we table this for 2 weeks?
You can make a motion to table it.
I'll make a motion that we table it.
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote. No more discussion when it's tabled.
So to table,
It's tabled by Council Blair. And we'll have a roll call vote beginning. No, we don't have to roll call vote that because it's tabled, so there's no discussion.
Yeah, I think you have to have a vote on it to table
I think you
it.
do have to have it for a table. Let me just double check my little notes here, please. 1 second. Virginia made me some little cheat sheets. Yes, we do need to roll, and it requires a 2/3 roll call vote.
Yeah.
so this would be
So-
to table
To table,
the motion for the $29 bulk item, right?
no, I believe Council Blair, I just want to confirm, you're tabling the whole motion, correct?
Yeah,
The entire
table-
motion?
Right,
Okay.
I just want to be sure. Okay.
yeah. And
Vice President
everybody-
Jackson?
No, we can't have any more discussion once you
No.
table it. I wanted to,
No,
no, we-
No, I have a point of information.
okay. Go ahead, Council Dolan.
When I read in the parliamentary procedure, it says that it's majority.
Okay,
Vote.
2/3. Yeah, yes, excuse me. Thank you. And it's for the whole ordinance, correct, Council Blair? You're
I think
tabling the
we all know
ordinance.
it's one item, but yeah, the whole ordinance. You can't
Thank you.
just,
The
you just
whole,
can't.
the whole thing.
The whole thing. And the roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Okay, Ms. Holmes,
No.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Deluzio,
no,
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
No.
7 yeas, 3 nays.
Motion passes. Okay. Counselor Holmes, do you have any other business this evening for the ordinance committee?
No, I don't. I wish I could have spoken. We could have passed the rest of the ordinance and I could have held off on that and spoken to the administration. We have like 500 pages of ordinance that are in my committee right now, and it would be good, the things that we are agreeing on, I wish that we could move forward. So
Unfortunately, we're not allowed to discuss it any further while it's tabled. That's just,
I'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time, and that concludes the business.
thank you very much for all your work, Counselor Holmes. I appreciate it.
Vice President Jackson, I wish to rise to the floor.
Yes, Counselor Conti.
Thank you. Reporting for capital improvements and city development, we have no business to bring before the council this evening, but we look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Counselor Conti. Ms. Ravad, is there anything under old business?
I don't have anything.
I believe we have two things. Is there anything under new business?
Councilor
Yeah.
Jackson, I'd like to hold the new business until it's capable of being discussed by my Rules and Procedures Committee next week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Conti. And both the new business? He's going to hold, Mr. Conti's going to hold his.
Okay.
And then Councilor Deluzio. Business, correct? Councilor Deluzio?
I'm just trying to pull up the new motion, but I move to refer the following piece of business to the appropriate committee for recommendation and research, that we take a look at the city's fiscal and cash reserve policies.
Second.
Second.
Councilor Holmes, that seconded?
I
Who seconded?
seconded. And
Thank you
then
very-
Councilor Blair.
Thank you very much. Any comments?
I do.
Mr. Councilor Deluzio?
Thank you. I think we're, as we've talked about throughout this budget and tax classification and through various different pieces of business in front of this council, that we're in uncharted waters. And I think that it's probably prudent at this point to take a look at the fiscal policy as well as the cash reserve policy, come up with plans in the event that COVID continues longer than we expect. But just in general, how prepared are we from a fiscal standpoint in terms of being able to plan the best we can for the unknown? A lot of other communities and municipalities have done something similar. And I think at this point, it's just a discussion, as it is the council that in the past has set cash reserve policies.
Thank you, Councilor Deluzio. I'm actually going to refer this to Budget and Appropriation Committee.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a roll. So that's referred to Budget and Appropriations. We're going to have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Deluzio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Okay, so that will go into the Budget Appropriation Committee.
Ms. Jackson, could I ask you a question?
Yes, Councilor
Procedural.
Blair. Yes, Councilor Blair.
We turn to Zoom from here on in, is that correct? Or I know there's some of us that really prefer to sit in that nice blue chair up there on Tuesday nights, so.
Yeah. You know, let me close the meeting for a minute. No, actually, I'll answer the question now. Yes, Counselor Cooper sent out an email. I had actually left you a voicemail, asked you to call me back to confirm that you got it.
I know
And,
that. That's why I didn't show up.
Good, I'm glad you didn't. So, and I was here with Sharon Ravad because she has not been provided resources from the city yet to be able to do Zoom from home. So I came here with her. Counselor Kobus did not read his email and he came in very happily and had no idea. So yes, from now on, we will continue to do remotely 100%, all of us, including President Cooper. And that was his idea last week, as we all know, until he decides otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, Counselor Blair. With that, I don't think we have any other business to, nope, I don't have anything. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Oh, no. We have a roll call vote again.
Yeah.
Say all in favor. We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Deluzio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes,
10 yeas, no nays.
thank you. We are adjourned at 8:55. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye.